Hi everyone, it's Leanna here, and I decided I'd do kind of an indoor garden update. What I'm doing inside during our Minnesota cold winters. So we're in what I call the grow room, where I start seeds for in the spring, and I have no seeds started at this point. It's a little early, except for maybe some perennial herbs and flowers and wildflowers and things, which I'm going through all my seeds now, what I have and then what I want to get. And for starting, and I'll probably be starting some of that stuff earlier. Some of it might need to be cold stratified, slow germination, slow growing, so there'll be reasons why I start within the next month or so getting some of that going. Where everything else that's annual, vegetable, or whatever can't handle the cold or whatever it may be, I won't be starting until probably end of March, early part of April, and it's really going to be dependent on our year. If we have a spring like we did last year, that's going to be crazy. So I have some stuff out in my shop. I've lost some stuff already due to the cold and just the crazy weather. Even though I try to keep the shop above freezing, sometimes things happen, and I think we're losing a little bit of heat in there, and so there's some work I have to do when the weather warms up enough for me to do it properly. Anyways, and I need to find a new place to winter over more stuff, because out there I had rosemary, thyme, lemon verbena, some zonal geraniums, I have some lavender, I had a few other things, and I've lost some stuff already. And so I need to set up a different overwintering situation for stuff like that. Some things are pretty hardy and forgiving. I mean, I'm surprised my lemon verbena is probably a decade old. And my geraniums are usually pretty forgiving too. There's other things though, if it just gets too cold, or right around freezing, it's pretty much done. What we're looking at here is ginger and turmeric. The ginger, I just got some in there at the store, and you can see there's some sprouts coming up here. So this is called the pre-sprouting stage. I had gotten some what they call baby ginger one year to grow. They gave you instructions on how to do it, and it's sort of the same concept as what you do with the turmeric. Also, peat moss or sphagnum moss like this. This is sphagnum moss. And you get it moistened down, and I have a layer underneath, and then I have this layer on top. And it's just to help keep the tubers moist until they start sprouting enough, or they start putting up a little green shoots. And then you take what you have and then move it into soil. So this is one. These were like my sprouting trays, and I have a different kind of sprouting tray I want to try that I got for sprouts. Trying to remember where I got these in Florida. Not the ginger root, but the sprouting trays. These type here. There's another place in Wisconsin where I got the other ones, and I'll look for those websites. If I can find them, I'll put them down in the description below. The ginger root, I'm having a hard time finding places that will sell or can sell ginger root. So, but it's quite easy to get in the grocery stores. It's just maybe not the best for growing. That's kind of where, it's try to get it to sprout, use what you can, for cooking, and that's what I want to do. I want to use it for cooking. I want to dry it, maybe make some tinctures. I'm not quite sure what all I want to do there. I want to do a little bit more homework on that kind of stuff and see what really is the best way. We use a lot of dried ginger now, whether it be powdered or just a chopped up root form, and I use it in my tea for hormonal migraines. The reason why, it's good for indigestion, nausea. The curamins in it is good for inflammation, and I might go over that in another video and kind of give. I have several herb books that talks about a lot of this stuff, and some other access I have to. Even though it might say good for inflammation, there's specific inflammation that it works better for, and so I want to kind of inform people about that, get you to research more if you have specific types of inflammation. I mean, there's arthritic inflammation, there's bursitis type of inflammation, there's cardiac types of inflammation. Inflammation is just the body reacting to a wound, an invasion of a microorganism or whatever. And so it causes this inflammation. And mostly that's from the dying of killing off of the cells or the invading microorganism. My pan of turmeric, and I got, well, here's some that I got about 2 pounds from this farm in Florida. I mean, I looked online because our local store, we don't have a Whole Foods or anything like that. I mean, the closest Whole Foods grocery store that I am aware of is 2 hours away. And then the closest place that could have turmeric root is over an hour away. And you got to hit it just at the right time of the year, and it's not worth driving. So I was looking online for a small mom and pop type of place that grew turmeric, and I found this place in Florida. And actually they're quite nice tubers. I picked out the very best for me to pre-sprout, and the rest of these will be cleaned up a little bit farther in, and I will probably process them, chop them up and dry them, because we do use a lot of turmeric also in our cooking, and it's good for other things, which I'll talk about again in probably another video. So here's my little turmeric, and it's the same pre-sprouting process as the ginger. I have tried both in the past. I have had better luck with ginger. I think it's a little more forgiving. Turmeric, as Rob said from Ession's garden, he called it needy. Can't be too wet, can't be too dry. It just doesn't do real well, and I've sort of experienced that myself. So when he said it was needy, I asked him why he thought that. And pretty much it was the same conclusion that I had come up with. But I'm going to pre-sprout my turmeric here. As you can see, I tried to pick the ones with little possible sprout thingies on there. The best looking, you know, I mean, that's sort of how you pick out your seeds and different stuff when you're wanting to keep them over. You just want to keep them moist. They don't need light. They just need the heat and just to keep moist. Because as they sprout, if there is not moisture there, they will dry out and shrivel up and get funky. And hence why I'm not, you know, the ginger was, being it's from the grocery store, probably not going to be quite as good as possibly this turmeric for sprouting. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyways, so I moistened this sphagnum moss, put a layer on top, and then the roots another layer. And then, so I just check to make sure everything is moist, but I put in these humidity domes on to hold the moisture in. And they don't need to be sopping wet or anything, just enough to keep things from drying out. And then I'll put them on top. I gotta put some more light bulbs in this one, it looks like. I put this on top because the light do give off some heat, so it gives it some more heat that it needs. I think it's somewhere around 70, 75 degrees, something like that. And so this room is pretty close to that. And so that's my turmeric and ginger that I'm starting. Other things I have in the room here is obviously a buttload of aloe. And I need to start watering some of these. As you can see, they're kind of got some dyed back leaves. I need to start watering them a little more because I want to go in and clean them out. Probably process about half of what I have here or more. Repot whatever I need to, smaller ones or some medium-sized ones or whatever. And I want to get some of my space back, I guess is what I'm saying, because these don't live in Minnesota weather, not during the winter anyways. And so I've always had them in, and I'd like to get them where they're a little more manageable. This was 2 plants 20 years ago, something like that, and it's multiplied to a bazillion. Anyways, so yeah, I want to figure out how to make a gel or make it into a salve or something like that. I mean, I've used them for various things, just peel the leaf off or whatever and whatnot. So I do want to keep some plants around for fresh, but I also want to try to process a few. So this whole shelf is 2 by 4 feet, and so it's all full of aloe. What I have on top here, and I'm trying to shuffle things around because eventually I'm going to be starting seeds, and I want room for that stuff eventually from my seed starting shelf coming over to here. I always run out of room. So this is a seed geranium I started a couple years back. It's not my favorite color, but it's not a bad color. and I bring it in every year. This is a scented geranium. This one is sort of a lemon scent. Where I got it, she didn't know the variety anymore. Tags had got lost and people pulled tags out. So anyways, it was just locally. And it's a nice little greenhouse run by a young lady. And so I brought that one in. And then I got some lemongrass. And I was going to experiment with that. Probably could have just put them in water, but I put them in some soil. This is some older ginger root that were actually already sprouting, and so I just put them in dirt. And you can see there's a little green sprout coming up there. Some old sad looking parsley. One's trying to flower. Probably won't get seed off of it, but I brought them in, and I need to really just clean them up and get them going, or recycle them or something. I have these here. This is one of my sage plants. I sort of did some repotting and put some Vermicomposting soil in. This is a curry plant, which I'm thinking now I'm losing. It's just, he had a friend, and my friend, I really lost that one, so need to do a little more homework on them, but they grew fine during the summer. I kind of more experimenting with the growing, and then I'll go there from what other uses I can use it for. It's an herb anyways, and some that's used in cooking. That's a Martha Washington. They are very hard to keep over, and they are very hard to start. But I happened to get lucky one year, and a branch broke off, and I stuck it in the dirt during the summertime, and it took root. And it's the only one I've ever been able to get to survive. I accidentally was trimming my sage and trimmed that off. We'll see how that turns out. I just stuck it in some moist soil, and we'll see if it roots. This is my citronella, or mosquito plant. I have two of them actually. There's one there, and then this one here. It's from a mother plant that I had, and I use that. I just rub the leaves on my skin during the summertime when there's a lot of mosquitoes to deal with. And it doesn't do well making an oil out of it, I don't think. A person could try it, but mostly I've just taken the leaf and rub it on, and they're quite prolific in their growing, so that's not totally a big problem. A couple other little funny plants I have. They're kind of funky looking right now, is a couple of fuchsias, and these are just, you can treat them as an annual here in Minnesota, but this one's called Swing Time, and it has these little white pink flowers. And they're a semi-shade plant, but I have them in here under the grow lights, and they're not taking being inside all that well. I've had to kind of learn how to adjust my watering for them on the inside. And then this one is called Dark Eyes, and it's a darker kind of purple and pink. This one is not doing as well, but here's where you get the variation. It might be the same thing, fuchsia, but when they start making these variations in these flowers and herbs and whatnot, one type might be hardier. The original, which is very possible the way this one acts is the original type of flower, is much hardier and forgiving than this one over here. So I need to do some trimming up on them. Now that I've got them kind of turned around and I'm sort of looking at them and seeing how they're doing here. And so I need to do, what I want to do is take some starts off of them. That's my hope. These are not patented, so I could possibly do that without, you can do it for yourself on a patented plant. You cannot resell it. So possibly I could resell it if I wanted, if it worked out well enough. We'll see. And then one other thing I want to show you is my worm farm. Alright, so here's my worm farm. I've had this for quite a few years now, probably 15 or so. It has the bottom layer where the worm tea comes in. You can see the spigot there. You just turn it off and on. I add it to my water that I'm watering my plants to. And then it has 3 layers where the worms live. The bottom layer is now empty. You need an empty one to, once your worms get everything composted down, you can kind of go through and clean out the biggest majority of the worms and then put them in another layer. What I did to get that one layer emptied out to where all I had was the compost, I left the lid off and left it on top, and that made the worms go down. And then I'd fluff it and it took about 2 days to finally get it totally cleared out. And my little buddies are in here doing their work. I have coconut core and newspaper, and I try to not do colored paper, do the inks and whatnot. There's certain things that a person shouldn't put in your worm compost due to various things, but I got my red wigglers in May last year, I think it was, from Uncle Jim's worm farm. And let's see if there's any in here. There's an old banana peel here, and there's a, get them in the light. Come here, guys. I think you can see them moving around. Yep, there they are. Little red wigglers. They're working on the banana peel for me there. Anyways, I put the newspaper down. It makes it darker in there for them. And they like that. And then I don't have to really add any water. It seems to keep itself moist enough due to the stuff that I put in there. But the chickens don't eat everything. The chicken's not necessarily going to eat banana peels. They're not necessarily going to eat pieces of this or that or whatever. I give them to the worms. And the worms compost it down. And then they make worm compost and tea for me. And to me, that's probably the most effective way, especially in the wintertime here, to get rid of your scraps from in the house. So if you don't have chickens, and you live in a cold climate where you can't really have a compost pile, then you can have a worm farm, and you can make your own house. Oh, look at this compost again. It has no smell. I mean, this house worm bin is really non-smelly, and the soil, so you can see that compost has no smell to it. We have the smell test here. Don't know if you guys will see that or not. But anyways, so there's really no smell, and as long as you keep things out like meats, dairies, oils. I really don't put any, how do I want to say it? Processed food stuffs in there. I mean, bones wouldn't work. They take too long to break down. Worms don't really break down bones. The meats, the dairies, products, the processed, you just don't put that stuff in there because it'll make it stink. It'll attract different flies and what. You can see I have some fruit flies wandering around due to the banana peels and whatnot. So you want to get those things buried in there. You don't want to put a lot of citrus fruit. What else did Uncle Jim say in his citrus? Because it makes the too acid for the worms if you add any at all. He said add very little and add a lime, like calcium carbonate, to it. So you don't make the environment too acidic for the worms, and then you make them sick and blah blah blah. I have added some citrus type peels and things of that sort because the chickens won't eat those either. And they do break them down after a while, but it does take it longer to break down. A person might want to chop things up a little bit. It helps the worms kind of digest things down quicker, especially if you want to get it cycling faster. And that goes for any compost that you're making. The smaller the pieces are, the quicker it's going to break down if you're in a hurry. The larger the pieces, the slower it's going to take for that breakdown. So I think that's about it. I mean, I try to use non-colored as much as possible newspapers, and I have coconut coir that I use for the bedding for the worms. And I'll probably have to get another house because they've multiplied. I almost don't have enough room for them all, so I might have to get another house because I can't get more layers for this one. I'd just get more layers if I could, but this particular one I can't get more layers. I think it's made in Australia. But I'll put a link down to Uncle Jim's worm farm. He has worms and the bedding and the composters, and he has all kinds of stuff there. And you can look that up. I think that kind of covers my indoor gardening. Covered the shop, what I had in there, what's surviving, what's not surviving, what I have in here. I'll be doing more work, making more compost. Actually, I got a bucket and a half of that, of compost from one layer off of here that the worms did for me. So I'd like to make more, because it will be good to add to the plants, add to the seedling soil, things of that sort. So maybe we'll do a little, because I make a lot of times I make my own soil. The way this winter is going, I may have to buy some, but anyways, we'll maybe do a comparison on how the seedlings do on the various soils. So anyways, that's my indoor gardening update. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for stopping by.